Thank you.
I welcome you, my dear friends, to our Voice of His Kingdom weekly devotion. Today we shall be taking our text from the book of Exodus, chapter 1. And our core verses are from verses 11 to 13. And as you know, we just completed the book of Genesis last week, Sunday. And I believe that the Lord has taught you some very key lessons from the book of Genesis. And pray and trust that as we continue with the book of Exodus, that you will learn some more lessons. And as you do so, God will bless you, transform your lives, and continue to uphold you. So let's read our text together. Exodus chapter 1, from verses 11 to 13. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. Let's look at the background of this text. In the opening chapter and verses of the book of Exodus, a new chapter is seen to be opened for the Israelites. The favor and goodwill they enjoyed in the book of Genesis with their arrival in Egypt up to the death of Jacob was no more. Joseph, who was their sponsor and patron, was now dead. Verse 6 tells us that Joseph and all his brothers, the first generation of the Jewish immigrants to Goshen in Egypt, had died at this time in the history of Egypt. A new generation of Egyptians who didn't know Joseph arose in power and position and now sees the Jews from a different lens or perspective. In verse 10, they said to themselves, "Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous than us. And if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." So they became envious of the prosperity of the Israelites and sought ways to limit their growth and blessings. They changed their status from free immigrants to slaves and appointed slave masters over them. Let's look at some key lessons from our text. Verses 12 to 13 said, "But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread." So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. Tertullian, a first century church writer and philosopher, said that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. In short, the more Christian adherents are persecuted and killed for their faith, the more the church grows. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus said, "And I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." So what God has ordained cannot be annulled, my friends. He told Saul in Acts 9, verse 5, that it is hard for him to kick against the bricks by trying to persecute and stop the church from growing. So as we will see later in this book, the Egyptian Pharaoh embarked on an impossible task of trying to stop Israel from growing and prospering. God ordained that they will be in Egypt for 400 years. In Genesis 15, verse 13, we can see the reference to this. And his counsel, my friends, will stand no matter what happens. What key lessons can we learn or apply from our text? Romans 8, 30 to 31. He says that those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say in response to this? If God be for us, who can be against us? So God calls us into a relationship with him, and there's nothing man or the devil can do about it. It wasn't any Pharaoh that took the family of Jacob to Egypt, but God himself did so, and his purpose will be fulfilled surely. So if God has ordained a path for you, my dear friend, man can try to disrupt it, but since God is for you, it will not prevail. So, my dear friends, let's be confident that all will be well because God is on our side. God bless you and thank you for watching.